If you're a college student that's looking to academically lock in, then you've come to the right place. I just graduated from Stanford University this past year, and I've made a lot of mistakes over my time here so that you don't have to. After 4 years of trials and tribulations, here are 20 pieces of advice to help you become academically goated with the sauce. Number 1, go to class. If I could go back and tell freshman year Lordrick one thing, this is what it would be. Go to class. I know it sounds really simple and really obvious, but I cannot stress this enough. Go to class. As much as I've tried, and trust me, I've really tried my hardest, you simply cannot do your best learning without going to class in person. Trying to absorb as much material and decipher whatever hieroglyphics are on your professor slides that they've posted online can only take you so far. Not to mention, you're paying for college anyway, so not going to class kind of feels like you're just wasting your money. Think of it this way. If you divide out your tuition by the number of classes you have, each missed class is at least hundreds of dollars just wasted. As much as it stinks to have to wake up early and go to class, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you want to do well in college, you have to go to class. Number 2, sit at the front of class. A secret hack that I've used to maximize what I get out of my college lectures is sitting in the front row of the room. Back when I was in school, I was the kind of person that always headed straight for the back row of the classroom. In my mind, the people who sat in the front rows were just tryhards. As much as I hate sitting in the front, I admit that it has its benefits on top of just feeling like an absolute academic weapon. You can hear the professor more clearly, you can see the board more clearly. Somehow it's a lot easier to understand the material just by sitting at the front of class. And since I know there are people behind me, I'm less inclined to read manga on my laptop and instead actually pay attention to the class. And since the professor can see me since I'm right there, I'm not just gonna fall asleep. Instead, I'm gonna pay attention and maybe even participate. So although I didn't do this as much as I wanted and as much as I probably should have, you definitely should be sitting in the front of class. Number 3, find your textbooks online. Stop paying for your textbooks. Those things are like hundreds of dollars and you probably won't use them the second the class ends. Sometimes you won't even really use them during the actual class itself. I made the mistake of buying some textbooks in my freshman year that I barely even used for those classes. To be honest, I think it's kind of a scam that colleges make you pay for textbooks when they could probably just give them to you for free. That's why you should try to get your textbooks for free whenever and wherever you can. Sometimes they'll be available at your school's library, in which case you're really lucky, but sometimes you're just gonna have to sail the 7 seas for them. I can't really give you exact links, but there are definitely websites online where you can download PDFs of your textbooks online for absolutely free. It also makes reading through them a whole lot easier because you can just search through the text with Control F. Not to mention, this means you also won't have to carry around a bunch of textbooks in your backpack, so your back will definitely be thanking you. Number 4, don't enroll in 8 a.m. classes. No matter how strong you think you are, I promise you, you are not strong enough. Never, and I mean never, take 8 or 9 a.m. classes. I know it may not seem that bad coming out of high school where you were waking up at 6 or 7 a.m. every day, but college is a different beast. You're going to be working a lot harder and you're going to be staying up a lot later than you ever did in high school, and as a result, you're going to be a lot more tired. Waking up for an 8 a.m. lecture on the complete opposite side of campus is going to be the last thing you want to do. You might even start having thoughts of just skipping that class, which is a very slippery slope that you don't want to fall into. And even if you do end up going, you may not be awake enough to actually absorb any of the material as you're fighting for your life to just stay awake. So it's a lose-lose situation. If you can, do yourself a favor and try to take that class later in the day if it's offered. Number 5, max out your units every semester. This is my secret hack for getting as high of a GPA as possible in college. Just take as many classes as you can every semester. But I want to be clear that this doesn't mean you have to fit as many graduate level engineering classes as you can into your schedule. In any case, a lot of schools have caps on how many academic units a student can take per semester. So what you can do is just enroll in all of the classes that you need to first. Maybe take a couple classes for your major while making sure that the workload isn't going to kill you. And if you find that you have a couple units to spare and no more classes that fit in your major or account for general education requirements, you can just fill them in with random 1 or 2 unit classes. These classes tend to be a lot easier and in some cases don't actually have much work for you to do at all. What I used to do was take units for the research work I was already doing in my lab. It's a super easy A, which means a boost for your GPA without that much extra work. So if you can fit it into your schedule and your academic workload isn't too bad already, load up on as many units as you can. Number 6, take classes that have their lectures recorded. The pandemic did a lot of irreparable damage to society, but one thing it did give us was recorded lectures. Having recordings of your classes is so nice. I'm not saying this so that you can skip attending your classes in person, but it's really more so to supplement it. After your in-person lectures, you can go back and watch the recordings to review anything you didn't catch the first time around. And this is really helpful for when you're trying to study for your exams and couldn't remember what that thing your professor said in class was since you forgot to write it down. And sometimes you just have to hear something multiple times before you understand it. Not to mention that there's the added benefit that if you do end up missing a class for whatever reason, you can still watch its recording without missing too much. To be honest, recorded lectures saved my degree. There definitely is a lot of benefit from having in-person classes, and not everything translates well to online learning, but I really wish all of my classes could have been recorded. Number 7, make an assignment tracker. It's so easy to get disorganized in college, so don't let this be you. Once you get the syllabi for your classes on your first day, make a spreadsheet where you organize all your assignments for all your classes so that you can keep track of all your deadlines in one single place. Most schools use some kind of platform like Canvas or Blackboard for this kind of thing, but not all your classes are going to be making good use of it, and sometimes they only put their assignments on the syllabus, meaning it's going to be up to you to be on top of things. Having your own assignment tracker in the form of a spreadsheet really makes up for that. I personally use Notion, but you can really use anything that has a similar function. I even have some friends who straight up just used an Excel sheet. You can also break down your assignments into smaller chunks, like finishing one problem of your homework one day and another problem the next day. That way you can spread out your assignments so that you aren't scrambling to finish everything the night it's due. Number 8, form groups with your classmates to study together. This is the thing that saved my life in all of my STEM classes. My math classes, my biology classes, my chemistry classes especially. And it's very possible that I would have failed without it. Form study groups with your classmates so that you guys can work on assignments together and then also review for exams together. No single student is going to have mastered all the material, except for the kids blessed by God who are just truly cracked. So by pooling together your knowledge, collectively, you guys all come out in a better place. For some of my classes, we had huge Zoom meetings with dozens of students where everyone just asked and answered each other's questions. This kind of thing can also be really effective for doing something like having a shared notes document that everyone contributes to, so that during lectures, you can see in real time how other students are understanding the material and you can aid each other's understanding. Study groups are very goated. There's really no reason to go through your classes all by yourself if everyone can come out ahead by working together. Number 9. Use your school's resources. This is an underrated tip that not a lot of students take advantage of, so don't let this be you. You have to remember that your school does not want you to fail, even if it may seem like that sometimes. Your school is going to have so many academic support resources to help you succeed. You have your academic advisors, you have university tutors, you have entire offices dedicated to just helping students succeed. They're also going to have all sorts of resources dedicated to giving you the extra help you need just to pass your classes. And as you may know, college is ridiculously expensive, so you should definitely be taking advantage of the resources that you're paying for. So many students go through all 4 years of college without ever visiting their tutor center, even though they could have benefited a lot from it. There is no shame in asking for help, and that's something that a lot of people have trouble grappling with, especially if you're going to a top university where most kids were used to being the smartest kid around and never needing any help. But it's okay. If you're struggling in Calc 3 or you're having trouble writing your paper in APA format, there's going to be some resource that can be of help to you. It's just a matter of you going out there and making use of those resources. Number 10, get to know your professors and TAs. If I could pick one piece of advice for succeeding in college, this is what it would be. Build relationships with your professors and TAs. These are the people who are responsible for your learning. They're there to help you, not hurt you. By getting to know your professors and TAs, you can ask them questions about things you're not understanding in class or get feedback on an assignment. If you know what they're looking for and what they expect from you, you can focus on making sure that you have those things down. And TAs are usually responsible for grading your work, not the professors, so having a good relationship with them can make them a little bit more lenient with you and more willing to accommodate you should something come up. Getting them to bump you up a few points could be the difference between a B+ and an A-. I'd say that the real value of college is in the relationships and connections you get out of it, and your professors are literally experts in their fields. Getting on their good side by having them actually know who you are can definitely go a long way, and they can offer a lot of advice to help you even beyond that class. Number 11. Build good study habits. It's not a surprise that studying better will lead to better grades. The challenge is that not everyone knows how to study properly, especially if you were able to just cruise by in high school without having to put in that much work. It's true that some people are just going to be naturally quicker at understanding things than others, but eventually everyone is going to hit a wall at some point. And that's why it's so important to have good study habits. There are a lot of great ways to go about this, but the best one, and the one that I swear by, is active recall. There are a couple different types of this, but one kind of active recall that I really like is the Feynman technique, where you're pretending like you're trying to teach the concepts to another person. This technique helps you realize which topics you remember and understand well enough to be able to teach another person, as well as which topics you aren't as clear on. Spaced repetition is also good for this so that you can prevent yourself from forgetting the things that you just learned. There's more to studying techniques than just active recall and spaced repetition, so let me know in the comments if you'd like a more in-depth explanation of the best study methods. Number 12. Go to office hours. Do you struggle to understand what's going on in your classes? whether it's because the professor is speaking 100 miles an hour or because you just couldn't wrap your head around the concepts the first time around. Lucky for you, there's this thing called office hours. Your professors will have designated times outside of lecture where they have an entire block dedicated to just helping out their students. And this could really be for anything. If you had a question about something that came up in lecture, or you're having trouble understanding how to approach a question on your homework, or you just want to review the concepts coming up on the next exam, your professor is there to help hold your hand and guide you to a better understanding. The most successful students I know are the kind of people who basically live in office hours. So clearly something's working right for them. Sometimes you might have scheduling conflicts that keep you from going to office hours, and in those cases, you can ask your professors and they'll usually be willing to help you find alternative times. So don't be shy and go to office hours. Number 13. Get to know upperclassmen in your major. This is another hack I like to use to get ahead in school. The best way to figure out what path to take and avoid making life-altering mistakes is by asking people who have already been in your shoes. Your upperclassmen are people who have already gone through all the things that you're going through. They already know what classes to take, what professors to avoid, which programs and opportunities are worth applying to, so it would be really beneficial to tap into their wisdom. You don't have to go through college blindly if there are footsteps that you can follow in. You could ask them for help in understanding a difficult topic for one of your classes, you could get advice on your course of study, things like that. Half of the classes I ended up taking at Stanford were at the recommendation of other people who had already taken those classes and really liked it. You could also get advice on more general things like internship or job opportunities, or maybe even ask them for a referral. And I think it's just really helpful in general to have some sort of role model figure in college. So I'd really recommend trying to befriend your upperclassmen, especially those that are in your major. Number 14, create systems and routines. College can be really overwhelming. You have to juggle school, work, life, people, and a million other things. So it can be really easy to get lost, which is why it's important to have good systems and routines in place. For example, making sure you go to bed and wake up at a similar time every day, blocking out certain hours of the day that you dedicate just to going to classes or just going to the gym or just hanging out with friends, creating templates for writing cover letters and emails, keeping all your notes and files organized, really anything you can do to streamline your workflow. One thing that I did that was really helpful was create a Notion page that contained everything related to school. This is where I could keep track of classes and all my assignments. Another thing that helped me was setting recurring events on my Google Calendar where I would block out time during the day to getting certain things done. There's definitely a lot that you have to keep track of, but by putting systems and routines in place to help you, it becomes a lot easier to manage everything. Number 15. Do all of your assignments. There's some really bogus college advice out there on the internet, and my goal is to be the exact opposite of that. One article I read was a compilation of advice from graduating college seniors, and one piece of advice said that if your homework is worth 10% of your grade or less, you don't need to do it and can still get a good grade without doing your homework. This is absolutely ridiculous to me. It is truly mind-boggling. I'll be the first to say, but you should absolutely do your homework, even if it's worth 2% of your grade. You never know what'll happen on your exams, and it is never worth taking the risk. Can you imagine if that 2% was the difference between a whole letter grade? Don't even get me started on a whole 10% difference. You should never gamble with your grade. Do everything that is required for your grade, even if it's not worth that much on its own. Everything adds up, and you really want to put your best foot forward. Number 16. Use an iPad and Apple Pencil for elite note-taking. There's been a long-standing debate on what the best way to take notes is. Some people advocate for taking handwritten notes, while others say typing notes is better. Not to be an Apple elitist or anything, but taking notes on an iPad is low-key goated. You can get the benefits of handwriting notes and the memory boost you get from the action of actually writing those notes. But you also get the benefits from taking typed notes in that it's easier to store them and then you can search through them a lot easier with Control F. Taking notes on an iPad especially shines when you want to draw diagrams or move things around on the page, which is a lot harder to do with either paper or typed notes. And I know that buying into the whole Apple ecosystem can be really expensive, but you could also go for a refurbished one or maybe even try out some of the Android brands. You might also find that oftentimes colleges will have loaner programs where you can rent out an iPad for the semester or something to that effect. It's a total game changer for taking notes, so I really recommend it. Number 17, don't cheat. It should be obvious enough, but do not cheat in college. They really don't take that stuff lightly. Whether it's using Chegg to find answers for your physics problem set or using an AI to write your English essay. Colleges will punish you so severely for that. If it's not academic probation, it might just be expulsion. I don't remember the exact school, but I remember in high school going on a tour where the guide said that the only 3 ways a student could get expelled from that school was killing someone, burning down a building, or cheating. So that just goes to show how serious it really is. I know that college can be really hard and that sometimes it's just so tempting to look up the answers when it's 4 in the morning and you just really want to go to sleep, or it's 10 minutes before your essay is due and it would be so easy to use AI to write the last 2 pages of it. But I promise you, it will never be worth it to cheat. Maybe you can get away with it without being found out, but if you do get caught, it is over for you. Number 18. Ask for extensions before the deadline. This is one piece of advice you'll want to remember for the next time you find yourself with 5 minutes before your assignment is due. This is something that I didn't realize I could do until halfway through college, but you can literally just ask your professors for an extension. Sometimes you might want to give an excuse like having other assignments that you were swamped with or maybe being sick, but sometimes you don't even need to do that. You can just ask your professors for more time and they might just give it to you. Something I've come to learn throughout my time in college is that it's really not that deep, and your college professors aren't always going to be so pedantic, and they won't care if you take extra time on an assignment. Sometimes I'll just ask for an extra 24 or 48 hours and they'll just give it to me without any questions asked. But I will warn that this is more likely to work with a humanities professor than with a STEM professor. But in any case, it will not hurt to try, so just ask for an extension. Number 19. Don't leave your assignments until the last minute. This is one mistake that you have to avoid in college. If this is a habit that you already have right now, you need to get rid of it as soon as possible. Please don't leave your assignments until the very last minute. I know it can be really fun to see how long you can procrastinate on your work and use the adrenaline rush to finish it in the 11th hour. Sometimes you can get by with this, other times you end up submitting a half-finished assignment or not submitting anything at all. In either case, it often isn't going to be your best work. So please give yourself time to work on your assignments and aim to submit at least a day before the actual due date. The worst thing that could happen is you're about to submit an assignment at 11:57 p.m. and you find out that the due date was actually for 5 p.m. This has unfortunately happened to me on multiple occasions, so don't let this be you. I love procrastinating more than anyone else, but I have to urge you to start early. Number 20. Take at least one fun class per semester. This is the one thing that kept me sane throughout my 4 years at Stanford. Unless you're absolutely in love with your major, you're gonna have to take quite a few classes that you actually don't really like that much, whether because you find the material uninteresting or because the classes suck the life out of you. So to give yourself at least a little bit of a reprieve, I would recommend taking at least one fun class per semester. Bonus points if the class can count towards some other requirement, like a general education requirement or as a major elective. A lot of my favorite classes at Stanford were ones that had nothing to do with my major. I took classes in 3 different languages at Stanford, and I really enjoyed the classes for 2 of them. I also had friends who took classes on DJing, anime, badminton. When else are you going to be able to take classes on such random and interesting topics? If you find that you have leftover units after signing up for all your boring major classes, why not take a fun class? So in short, college is really hard, but you can make things a lot easier and more enjoyable for yourself. And if you have anything else you're curious about or want more advice on, be sure to like and subscribe.